According to Vulture, Keke Palmer pulls podcast interview with Jonathan Majors. I'm not going to read all of this. I just think there's some interesting quotes here, even though it's only like 2 or 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
It says, since last week, Baby This is Keke Palmer had been teasing an episode titled No Easy Answers, Accountability and Moving Forward with Jonathan Majors, set for April 8th. And apparently it got pulled.
Mm-hmm.
So it was replaced with an interview with rapper Cash Doll, with no acknowledgement from Palmer or production company. Wandery.
Wondering.
Damn it. I started saying that and then I thought maybe it's Wandery.
It's actually Amazon's podcast network.
Ah, nice. Anyway, all right, here's the quote. It says, quote, "We're living in a time where we want real accountability, especially for things men have gotten away with for far too long." The description of Palmer's deleted episode read, quote, "At the same time, finding forgiveness feels harder than ever, and we're still figuring out what true accountability even looks like." End quote. Palmer promoted the episode with a clip of her playing This or That with Majors, in which they bonded over their obsession with time, quote unquote, and Majors said he'd rather star in a rom-com with his wife Megan Good than a buddy cop movie with his friend Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had seen a clip from this.
Well, I guess you saw that clip.
Maybe. I didn't watch it. I just know that I saw it and I said, oh, she interviewed him. I honestly moved on from it. I didn't really think about it too much when I saw it. Sometimes when you just...
Yeah, I'm just trying to be, all in their face like you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I was too laid back. You know what I'm saying? The sniffles was
It got
pulling
you
me back.
down.
Yeah,
It
they had me
knocks you
down bad.
We're going to get to that. Anyway, so... Come walk in my shoes. Anyway, so... Keke. Girl. Keke. This was not a good look, and apparently they realized it was not a good look, and...
Oh, I forgot that. It said there was scrutiny from fans.
Yes. Okay.
That was part of what I skipped over. I apologize. That is totally my bad.
Yeah, so that's what this is. There was a lot of backlash once people found out she had interviewed him. And if I'm correct about the clip that was out and you spoke about it, but it painted him in a very positive light. It looked like they were having a good time. Now,
It says her fans. I'm sorry to cut you off. I should have said during. It says her fans criticized her for helping rehabilitate Major's image.
right.
I'm sorry.
So again, if they start looking at the idea here is that if people platform him and they portray him in a positive light, that they are in fact helping rehabilitate his image. He's trying to get back some of the respect he lost. I don't know that he's looking for anyone in particular to respect him, but when I say he's trying to reclaim that respect, I think it's because he wants to work, so he needs the industry to respect him at least. And the industry will only respect you if you can make them money. And if fans don't want anything to do with you, you can't make them money. So I think it's all, connected. But the reason I say this was a bad look, and I did see some of the comments that people made. Keke Palmer has spoken about harassment and SA and DV. Sorry, I was trying to
I got
can
you.
see the words, but I'm like,
I got you.
So she's spoken about these things before, namely when she had a situation with Trey Songz years ago. She spoke out about it. A lot of people did not believe her
Mhm.
when she first talked about it. It wasn't until other stories started to come out about Trey Songz, and to my knowledge, Trey Songz has actually never been convicted of any of the crimes that people have accused him of. But that was the point where people were like, "Oh, maybe Keke Palmer was onto something." She spoke about his alleged predatory behavior when she was working with him some years back. So there was that. There was also, prior to watching Surviving R. Kelly, she had made some statements about R. Kelly and about all of the things he did and defended him.
Mm.
Basically said he's a great guy. He's an R&B singer. I mean, he's the king of R&B. Like, it was a whole thing that conversation she had. I believe it was on the
Mm.
Breakfast Club years ago. After she walked back those comments. I think she did an interview with Billboard where she walked back those comments
Okay.
when she saw Surviving R. Kelly. So I feel like
She was like,
Kiki,
actually, he's not a
right,
great guy.
right, but she had a personal relationship with him, so that's notable as well, that she had a personal relationship with him. I'm sure that's where that came from. Not to make any excuses for her, but I guess that's why she was able to see grace for him. I don't know. Um, but also sometimes it's not seeing grace. Sometimes it's just being jaded and not actually seeing what's in front of you.
I can
Um,
understand that.
so whatever the case may be, I feel like Keke Palmer has a complicated past with these topics.
Okay.
So people know this about her.
Right.
And that's the first thing they say. Yeah, y'all remember when she talked about R. Kelly? That's what they were
Mm.
in her comments saying. And they were like, oh, so you
Okay.
back on this again.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how to feel about this, to be honest. What do you think?
I think it's a weird situation. I think uh I think sometimes in this industry, podcasting industry is what I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
specifically. I think people do things that people seek out interviews and moments um that will create uh a buzz, that will create a bigger moment for their platform. And I think sometimes what happens is, my personal opinion, I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes they feel good about it until they hear from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's their peers, sometimes that's fans, and then they're like, ooh, all right, maybe this is not a good idea.
Nope.
Because I remember, I won't say names,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember another interview that had got pulled that was really, really highly anticipated,
Mm-hmm.
and it was being promoted. And a podcaster pulled the interview. And the person who was interviewed flipped out. So much so, I was making a very big public stink. So much so that the podcaster had to come out and say, "Hey, I pulled this relationship where they dumping. What's going on? They over there
Sorry.
listening to they over there listening to Destiny's Child,
Ladies, leave your man at home.
right? Even though I said thumping, it
You
was
did, and I
jumping.
just I was gonna ignore that.
So
I
I
wasn't
corrected
gonna say
myself.
anything
Don't
because
worry
you're my
about it.
co-host, and I didn't want to
It's all
call you
right. I
out
got it.
in that moment.
I know the lyrics.
I mean,
But
can you send me a message in the chat and tell me who you're talking about? Because I really don't know who you're talking
I
about.
sure will. I sure will. Um, so the podcaster had to come out and say, like, listen, I received a phone call from someone I am friends with, and I was unaware that y'all public issue was a real issue, and I can't put this interview out because of the person I'm friends with or whatever. Which I didn't agree with, but I understood they're really not friends. It's industry friends, you know.
Okay.
But I'll tell you later. I just don't want to promote all of these people. But my point is, the person was in the same position where they were seeking a moment. It was a really big interview that people were looking forward to. I don't know that the Keke Palmer was being looked forward to or not being looked forward to.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is, this person was seeking a moment with a controversial situation and person, and it kind of blew up in their face in a sense. And so sometimes this happens. Uh, when Kanye went on Drink Champs, that's an example I don't mind using. The
Mm-hmm.
same thing happened. Nori was very excited, promoting the hell out of it. He always maintains his friendship with Kanye West, but it had both very good and very bad reviews simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you have an interview based show, it becomes challenging, which is why I've never been interested in doing one of those personally, because you constantly have to seek people out to make your show happen. And that's going to tap into relationships, and you're going to be in positions where some of those relationships are going to be questioned, and some of those episodes are going to be questioned, whether now or later. And I think that's a compromising position to be in. And it seems like that's what happened here. It seems like Keke Palmer and her crew felt good about it until they got that fan backlash and then said, ooh, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is why that is so impactful. I don't have a huge following. We don't have a huge following. Keke Palmer's podcast is clearly bigger than ours. And so maybe she feels, maybe her and her crew felt this would damage the podcast and its reputation too much. I do think when you pull an interview like that you've been promoting, you should say something though. Um, I just don't ever
I agree.
understand the thought process prior and after, because if for example R. Kelly reached out and said, "Hey, I'd love to be on weeknights," that would be a huge moment for weeknights, obviously. But we would have to think: is this worth the risk? Do we want to do this? And what I don't understand is they assess that, they accept that, they do it and promote it, and then be like, no, no, okay, okay, I'm having second thoughts. It's not the time for second thoughts. Shouldn't you have had second thoughts mad long ago? Like, that's what I get confused about. And maybe because, again, my platform is teeny tiny. Maybe that's why. But I
Well,
just
there's
feel like
no.
there was mad time
Mm-hmm.
in between you reaching out to them or them reaching out to you. Y'all setting a date to do this interview, post production, promo. Like, there was so much time in between for you to second guess. And that's what I don't understand.
I think the problem is, I think the disconnect comes in when you are not distancing yourself from the thing, right? So you can have them on your show. Let's take a show like, let's take someone like Diane Sawyer or Robin Roberts,
Okay.
to name a black woman. Let's take one of them. They both work for ABC. Both work for Disney in some capacity. They both are very strong interviewers. They've been interviewing people their entire careers.
Okay.
If they sit down with somebody for ABC
Mm-hmm.
News, and interview them, so maybe it is Jonathan Majors. I think they were not the ones to interview Jonathan Majors, but he did interview over there a while back. We know this. They're going to have a conversation with him, and they're going to ask him questions, and it's going to be a conversation that is informative,
Okay.
right? They're not gonna kiki with him, right? They're
Pun intended.
gonna. Oh, I wasn't even thinking, but yes,
I mean, the
they're.
king of R&B.
I know. Um, I just do it, and I'm not even thinking about it.
Triple entendre. Don't even ask me how.
I, I hate that line.
That's why I said it.
But anyway, um, yeah, I think they're able to distance themselves as journalists. They're able to distance themselves from a traditional journalist can have the conversation and nobody's mad at them for interviewing the person, right? Because
Right.
they're going to have a conversation where they're going to stay on task, they're going to base their conversation in fact, and they're not going to, not always, going to get personal with the person.
Yeah,
The
it's a more
problem,
journalistic approach.
exactly. The problem that I think people have with a Keke Palmer or a Nori is that they want to have a friendly conversation. They want to hang out with the person, so to speak.
Okay.
Um, and that's a different approach to it. And I think people see the way people perceive that is, well, you're there having a good time with Jonathan Majors.
Mm.
And you've denounced men publicly for doing things to women. Um, might not be on the same level. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to compare the situations at all. I'm just saying this is the way people are seeing this. And they're saying, okay, but now you kicking it with him on your couch on your podcast, and you don't have to do that because it's yours. Nobody's making you interview Jonathan Majors. You are making the decision to do this.
Right.
So we have to, if we're going to hold somebody accountable for platforming him, it's going to be you because you over there cracking jokes and playing a game with him. And that's not what people want to, I don't think everybody's ready for that.
Okay.
I think it's easier for people to honestly go see a movie of his than sit down and watch an interview where he looks like he's having a good time.
I agree with that.
So, and I'm not saying that's right, right? Because if you are choosing to accept what has happened and allow him to move on from what has happened, then at some point you got to allow him to do his job, and part of his job is being interviewed, is
Yeah.
promoting himself. But
Yes.
people have to make that decision, like what, and maybe you don't think he should be a working actor. Those are the people in her comments, probably.
Yeah.
The 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 opinion is split on Jonathan Majors as far as I can see right now.
Yeah.
Some people think that he should be able to continue his career after everything that's transpired, and they feel like he should be able to rehabilitate himself. But there are still plenty of people who don't agree with that.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think she should address it. I don't think you should just pull the interview and not address it, especially after you were promoting it.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
wholeheartedly agree. I don't like this thing where you're just going to pull an interview. We saw a clip from the interview. It's not even like we heard about the interview and then it didn't come out. You released a clip and you got a lot of nerve to not say anything, not put out a public statement. It better at least be on the next episode of your podcast where you say, hey, this is why. Or even with the Cash Doll episode, maybe you needed to put a little piece at the beginning or the end of the podcast where you said, we decided not to do this because of XYZ.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think you got to address it, especially when it's something so, I guess, buzzworthy. I don't have a better term at the moment, but something that's so public facing, and something that's a topic of discussion at the moment. And
Yeah.
Jonathan Majors is definitely a big topic of discussion at the moment.
Yeah.